Portsmouth Town Council meeting. Tonight is a special town council meeting specifically for interviews for our municipal court judge. If in an event of emergency, for the one person who hasn't been in this room before, there is a door you came in, one behind you to your left and one behind Mr. Reese. Should there be an emergency, we'll go outside and meet at the school committee building and wait for the authorities to help us. Now, if we could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women in harm's way.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Gleason?
Here.
Ms. Blank? Here. Ms. McDowell? Here. Ms. Patton? Here. Mr. Piero?
Here.
Mr. Reese?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
I am here. All right, so the format this evening is we're going to do 20-minute interviews with each of the 6 candidates. He said, plus 1 or 2 dropped, but yes, 6, thank God. I got it right. Ms. Anthony, if you'd like to come up front right here, I will ask you to speak directly into the front of the microphone. That way everybody can hear and folks at home who may be online could hear you as well. I will ask you to introduce yourself. And if you want to give a couple minute speech about why you're looking forward to this interview and the job, that would be great. And then we'll go around the horn with a few questions and hopefully have you out of here by 6:20.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alicia Anthony. I'm an attorney. I practice in Newport. I actually have appeared in the probate court here on several occasions. I hope to not need to use the emergency exit. I appreciate all of your time this evening. I hear that you have 6 candidates, and so you should be here for a couple hours. I hope to start you all on the right foot. A little bit about myself. I live in Newport in addition to practicing in Newport. I have been practicing in Newport for a couple years now. Previous to that, I was with a large firm in Providence, but I've spent my entire practicing career as an attorney in the state of Rhode Island, only practicing really in the state of Rhode Island. I do some Massachusetts work as well. Not that that's particularly relevant. I have an extensive career prior to my practice. I spent a couple years as a trust officer with a regional institution. I also have worked as a paralegal, and I did that for several years prior to jumping into the practice of law. I did that on the very sage advice of my mother, who suggested I get a practical job and skill set after graduating from college, and that really launched my legal practice. So I'm coming up on almost 15 years doing some form of legal work in various capacities. I have applied for this role because I am a person committed to public service. I have spent my entire professional career performing public service in a variety of ways. I presently serve on several nonprofit boards that primarily and exclusively serve either Newport or Aquidneck Island at large, that range from human services to public education. I am, from a personal standpoint, married to someone who is also extremely dedicated to public service. It's just who we are, and it's ingrained in our blood. And so when I saw this opportunity arise, I was happy to present myself as a possible candidate to you. I think that I bring some unique skills, experiences, and attributes that, not knowing the other candidates, that may set me apart. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about those experiences that you may have.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the introduction. I challenge anybody on this dais to figure out where Oneonta, New York is. Anyone? No.
I've been there.
Okay.
Hall of Fame.
There you go. It's all Hall of Fame. There we go. Nice and easy. Who would like to start with questions? Ms. McDowell? Well,
Welcome. Thanks for being here and thanks for applying for the position. Could you tell me a little bit about what you know about Portsmouth specifically? I know you're from Newport. You're on the island, but what do you know specifically about Portsmouth?
I generally have a understanding as an Aquinic Island resident, but I did take the time prior to this interview to work through several of your municipal documents, including your ordinances that I would be primarily charged with overseeing, as well as things like your comprehensive plan. I think a document like that gives an excellent insight to your community and what your policy goals are as a council, how you arrive at the ordinances that you have, and how you may expect to see those implemented. So I understand, just to get a little bit into the facts, because I'm a detail-oriented person, that only about 30% of your land use is devoted to residential and commercial homes or businesses, that you're primarily, and that's concentrated up here in the north, that you're primarily focused on being I don't want to use bedroom community in any particular way, but you are a bedroom community. People come to Portsmouth because you have high quality education and you have a high quality of life. To the extent that that would shape my experience or my decision making as your municipal court judge, I would take that heavily. There are a lot of issues that come before a municipal judge, like things like short-term rentals or nuisance complaints, things that really go to the quality of life and why people choose to live in Portsmouth. And so I would be primarily focused on ensuring that not only your ordinances are being met, as well as, other types of statutes or concerns, but with that lens of why you all choose to live here and why you have put these policies in place.
Great, thank you. So what do you feel are some of the most challenging legal or other issues facing municipal court judges?
I had a chance to look at your 2022 to 2023 town administrator report just to get a better understanding of the cases that you have, particularly here in Portsmouth, which are certainly different than maybe in other communities. Certainly, this isn't like Providence, a capital city. So what I did see in that report was there were a large number of wastewater related violations, as well as zoning, dog violations in a variety of capacities. And so what I would see for Portsmouth is challenges, particularly around zoning and short-term rentals. That's an Aquinic Island issue at large. However, how each community chooses to approach that is slightly different. I've taken a look at your fees and your violations. I do think that's an up and coming issue. And to the extent that may become more expansive in the next several years is certainly a possibility. And so as a municipal court judge, you have the ordinances in place, but it's also being mindful of how this body chooses to welcome or not the increased number of short-term rentals. And so it'd be pertinent for the municipal court judge to really understand your policies as those may change as these things develop.
I certainly have a couple more, but if people want to jump in, they're welcome to.
Mr. Reese?
Well, all right. All right.
We've only got theoretically 10 minutes. So we go over.
Okay.
You don't mind if we go like 25? Okay.
Just this and easy.
It's gonna happen.
How does this position fit in with your existing schedule and practice?
So I am a full-time practitioner here on the island. Like every good island girl, I try to limit my practice here. So I also try to limit my community service to here on the island as well. I have time and capacity. This court presently only meets once a month on Wednesday mornings. My schedule is open and available. I do understand that there may be times where this position would have to step into the role of probate judge, and those are on different days. I have the type of practice where I am really my own boss, and so I can set my own hours and flexibility.
Okay. And do you have any conflicts of interest which would limit your duties as a municipal court judge? And how would you handle those conflicts if you did have any?
That's a great question. I don't have any business interests in Portsmouth. I don't own any real estate here. To the extent that I have partners in my practice, the only work that we do in Portsmouth is through the probate court. It's very rarely that we may have a client come before the municipal court. And those are typically for low-level traffic offenses. And my firm is supportive of me pursuing this endeavor and is willing to put the appropriate conflict walls in place. But I really have no interest in beholden to no one.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Patton, any questions?
Hi, thank you for coming. Question is based more on like housing and zoning. So how would you balance enforcing the town zoning laws with the community needs and development interest?
As I mentioned, I think that you as a council body spend a lot of time developing your ordinances. I'm acutely aware that your time on the dais is probably not all the time you spend researching, talking to members of your community, bringing experts in. And so to the extent that there's updates to your zoning ordinance, which I'm sure you look at on a fairly regular basis, it's being nimble to those changes, but it's making sure that I'm not reliant just on those ordinances. I'm a person who does a heavy amount of research before going into something. And so making sure that I know your current positions on those types of issues. And it's also just having that general understanding of the community that in your residential areas, you tend to be densely populated, that you pride yourself on being I believe the term in your comp plan was res-rec, a residential community that focuses or enjoys the recreational component. A small portion of your land use is commercial industrial. To the extent you all as a body choose to expand that, that is your prerogative and is simply my position should I be selected to this role to ensure compliance by others with the policies you've put in place.
Mr. Perro? Ms. Blank? Okay. Mr. Gleason?
My only question is about your confidence factor, for lack of better words, of going from that side of the bench to this side of the bench. How do you feel about that role? And have you done anything of that nature in the past?
Sure, that's a great question. As a personal, reflective insight into myself, and I'm sure my husband would agree, I have a lot of confidence, and I wouldn't say that's to the point of cockiness, but I'm a person who has spent their entire life wanting to be an attorney and then actually being an attorney and a practitioner, and I want to be the best that I can. And to do that, it requires research. It involves understanding where all parties are coming from. Those are skills I naturally have. And so to transition into a decision-making role from a legal perspective, I feel very confident in. I also have extensive experience in the nonprofit world, being on boards. I'm a board of trustee or a board of director for several organizations in which I hold leadership roles. I've just wrapped up serving as a president of a statewide organization. So being in command of a room is a natural fit for me. I also hold a master's in public administration, so I have a degree in government administration. I understand that it's not just leading the courtroom, but it's working with your staff. I know Clerk West through the probate practice, and I know she is wonderful at what she does, but that is also a role to navigate, and I'm confident in my ability to do that as well.
Thank you. The other thing
Thank
if I might just add is that we basically have an amount budgeted for this position. So I don't know if it fits in with you, but we have $9,410 for the year for a stipend for this position. If that fits into your, we don't need an answer now, just so you know. Okay.
I appreciate you letting me know. I did review that in the budget prior to this, but I'm not pursuing this role for monetary gain.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So speaking of monetary, the court's time, the clerk's time, and the town's time all cost money. And to have repeat offenders and others in the courtroom on a regular basis, how do you feel like you can balance making sure that the court is funded by the folks who are there and also having empathy potentially for the folks that are in front of you? How do you think you can balance those things?
I think that we can all recognize that there are people in our community that are just always going to be posed with challenges. We call them frequent flyers. That is just for whatever reason, whether their fault or not, part of who they are, and that's okay. And I can accept that, and I can be lenient. There's also using the court as a tool to find and provide help and guidance. Punitive damages don't always work. Sometimes people who are frequent offenders because they cannot afford whatever it may be. They can't afford whatever assistance may help them break the cycle that they're in. And so levying fees and fines against them is not going to problem solve. There are, however, times where that is completely appropriate. There are people who just do the wrong thing, and sometimes a slap on the wrist, quite frankly, is the right approach. Every case is different, every person is different, and every set of facts is different. I can't blanket say I would be one way or another because it would depend on who's before me and what the situation is. But I do think that the court can be used as a tool for law and order, but as well as trying to provide help to those members of the community who need it.
Okay, so you do believe there is a balance between
Yes.
finding those frequent flyers that may need help and finding the frequent flyers who are frequent flyers just because they don't follow the rules.
Yeah, I think that there is a difference of a frequent flyer who can't help but find themselves in these situations and frequent flyers who are, for lack of a better way of saying it, scofflaws. It's pretty easy to tell the difference.
And you wouldn't have any problem leveling fines against them and holding them accountable if need be.
Absolutely not. And that's part of the job. We also know that for those types of, people before the court, that's coming at an expense, to your point, of the community, to their neighbors, to the taxpayers. And we have to be cognizant that they shouldn't just get away with it.
Okay, thank you. Any further follows, Ms. McDowell?
You covered one of my areas.
Okay, good.
Without giving specifics, what has been the most difficult case you have been involved in your career, and why was it difficult?
So a part of my practice, I primarily focus in the trusts and estates realm, which touches a lot of simple administrative matters to complex family dynamics and litigation. Part of that includes guardianships, and working with families who sometimes feel as though they have no other available resource to help someone in need of help. There is an individual who, for mental health reasons, substance abuse reasons, can't seem to get out of their own way, that I would characterize as one of those frequent flyers of a lot of different types of courts and systems. And it's challenging because I know the bounds of the law cannot help this family, that there is nothing that I can do as an attorney within the statutes, state statutes. There is nothing that a judge can do until this person chooses to help themselves. Cases can be complicated, but when we have statutes and ordinances that we can rely upon for answers, it's complicated, but we get there. When there are no answers or solutions for something like a guardianship, I think that's the most challenging because I just simply can't do more than what my role provides.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Guilty of my own rule. Any further questions from the council? Our process tonight is going to be to go through the 6 interviews. That'll finish up sometime around 8 o'clock would be my guess. The council will then deliberate and we will make a selection. And that person will be contacted by our HR department. And then we will draft up a services agreement with our attorney. And we'll go from there.
Wonderful.
Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
I don't have any questions for you. I just would like to thank you all for your time. Do you have another question for?
No, I just
I don't
wanted to
wanna-
make sure you had the opportunity to ask questions if you had any.
I'm not here to accommodate the president's role, but I.
You're taking
have-
command of the room.
That's okay.
Demonstrating my abilities. Thank you again
Yeah.
so much for your
More than
time.
welcome to trade spots. I mean, it's a lot of fun up here.
Thank you very much.
Miss Anthony, thank you very much for coming
Thank
in.
you.
We'll be in touch. I believe I saw Miss Rice walk in the door. Good evening, Miss Rice. How are you? I'm good. Have a seat. We are.
I would be inclined to shake all of your hands, but I know after COVID, people don't prefer that.
It's all good. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I'm going to ask you just to make sure you speak right into the front of the microphone so that everybody, well, there's nobody at home watching, but it goes in the microphone well and the recording picks it up well. So we're giving each candidate about 20 minutes for the interview. We'll give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself for those who don't know Ms. Rice, and explain why you're interested in the position. And we'll go around the horn with some questions. And if you want, take it from there.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your time. I hope you had a chance to peruse my resume and cover letter, which summarizes my experience. I know that I've met some of you and some of you may know me but haven't met me because, you know, it is a small island and I've been around for a while. You know, I served on the Portsmouth Town Council 23 years ago. I can't believe it. It's been that long. But I'm an attorney going on 25 years in the fall for my practice. I've had a general practice, but over the years I have narrowed it down. It has been primarily civil, although I have done some criminal. And I, in addition to the criminal, the little bit of criminal, I had the honor of being selected by the chief judge of the district court to serve as a bail commissioner for the district court, which basically is performing judicial duties in the evening and on the weekends, as the judges decide they did not want to do them. And so for 14 years, I would, whenever the police departments in Newport County needed a judge for either signing an arrest warrant or setting bail, we had a rotation. There was a list of us, and it's generally a dozen, give or take, and usually less. And at least each month, I would go to each police department and perform the judicial duties of a district judge, setting the bail, giving the rights and conditions, or signing a warrants. And that was very interesting. And then in addition to practicing, and by the way, I've practiced in every state, every court in the state, district, family, superior, supreme, federal, and I'm also a member of the First Circuit Court and the United States Supreme Court, which was also an honor. And as you may know, I also served in the legislature for 6 years after I sat here, which was a great honor because at the time that seat represented all 3 towns on the island, which I thought was, again, an honor to do. And it's such a learning experience as well. So in addition to those 3 things, the areas that I covered now, you know, are business, estate, litigation, which covers a lot of different things, and real estate. And I understand that this position also may have to cover for probate. And Richard Daddario, Judge Daddario is of the probate court, is my long-term colleague. He is my landlord, as you could tell by the address, perhaps you may have noticed. And so I have practiced in probate since I started in '02. So I'm comfortable in covering for the probate court when he has a conflict. And I presume there may possibly be a conflict along the way with me, and I guess he could cover for that if there were one. I am comfortable being before the public. Before I went to law school, I actually was a deputy sheriff, and I worked with prisoners and judges. And then, and I also worked in the governor's office where I worked with the governor. So I've had a very broad spectrum of public service. I've been on both sides of the aisle politically. This is not a political position, as you well know. I have the law enforcement background. I was a deputy sheriff for 11 years. I take that seriously. I take law enforcement seriously and rules, although I understand that, people are imperfect. And so on the one hand, it's a balancing act. You need to be compassionate to people having problems and not being able to do things, but on the same time, making sure that they don't abuse the system. And work with whoever I'm serving, like the prosecutor has to work with the police department. I need to work with the council and perhaps probate on occasion. I'm seeking to fill this position because I believe that my background would serve it well. I love the law. I love public service, and it'd be a nice way for this part of my practice after practicing for almost 25 years. And I'm sure there's many more things that will come up, but I'll start with that.
Great, thank you very much. So we're going to go around the horn with some questions. And Mr. Piero, do you want to start?
Should start following rules. I would say my first question is based on something you just said, that your relationship with Judge Dario and your experience locally. How would you handle any conflicts that do arise, and how have you handled that in the in previous practice?
I'm sorry,
In your current, whenever you do have conflicts or you've had conflicts in any of your positions, how have you handled those?
well, every attorney, despite the lawyer jokes, we have so many different categories of rules that apply to us. And one of them is, we have to do a conflict check, before we accept a case. So if I knew anyone on the other side, especially, if I just know them, like I know, Counselor Gleason, doesn't mean that I can't take the case. But if I, went out with them every, now and then and had drinks with them, then I couldn't take the case. So lawyers are bound to do that, to decline a case if there's a conflict. When I'm on vacation, we're supposed to also pick someone that is there in case there's an emergency for court matters, although we are allowed to be court excused in Rhode Island. And Attorney Judge Dario has been on my backup as a solo. Did I answer that fully? Do you have any other? And it would be the same, I guess I already touched on it. If I would get the position, if there were a conflict, I would have to state it up front and see if Judge Dario can handle it.
Ms. Blank, any questions? Ms. Patton? Sure. I'm going to jump around tonight just to get where, in case you haven't figured that out.
Hey, thank you for coming. Mine is more as far as how do you approach cases involving disputes between neighbors about pets, animal noise, things like that?
Oh, thank you for asking. And it just reminds me, I left out one thing in my practice. I'm proud to say that I also have been an arbitrator and a mediator. I'm a Superior Court appointed arbitrator. So I'm actually on the list for lawyers to pick me in a case, civil. So I approach it the way I approach those is, listen to both sides, read both memos. And then when there's an opportunity for a hearing, listen to both sides, ask questions that I believe are necessary if there are, and just, do my best in applying the law and the facts of the law. That's the problem with the law, is that every case is different. You have to apply, you look at the law, look at the facts and put them together.
Just to follow up on that, are you familiar with the town ordinance and things in Portsmouth?
I'm familiar with many of them, yes.
Okay.
I'm a proud resident, love Portsmouth. Been here, it'll be 27 years in September.
Thank you.
Mr. Reese? You want to put your 60-something years of residency to use? I'm just trying to be
All right.
nice, Dave.
How does this position fit in with your existing schedule and practice?
As it sits only at this time, once per month, it's very easily. I'm my own boss. I make my own schedule, so I can certainly schedule all my things around that.
Okay. And a lot of the items and conditions that are brought forward are all based on the town's comp plan. And as Charlene mentioned, on the all of our ordinances. How familiar are you with the comp plan and the ordinances and in the town documents as far as what's going to be affecting you?
Well, I was way too familiar with it way back then when I sat up there and everything else having to do with Portsmouth. And as I have said, since 2011, I'm fully recovered. No. So I remember many of them. But of course, as lawyers, we're not supposed to have all the laws in our head. We're supposed to be able to spot issues and research the law. And I certainly have those handy by my side and review them before each hearing.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. McDowell?
Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you feel are some of the most challenging legal or other issues that might face municipal court judges?
I believe the wastewater has always really been an issue for Portsmouth. I also believe that with all these housing law changes, with the ADUs and the zoning's going to be complicated, and it's kind of that I think is the newest breed of challenges for all municipalities, but particularly Portsmouth.
Thank you. And what do you feel might be some of the most rewarding aspects of this position?
Helping. I like to help the town, help people resolve. I'm a problem solver, so that's what I like.
And neutrality is important in carrying out the position of a municipal judge. The island is small, relatively speaking. So what does administering the law fairly and justly mean to you?
Well, as I said before, each case I will approach it by looking at the law and the facts. If I know someone more than, if I'm friendly with someone, then I would recuse. But also recusal in Rhode Island, the Supreme Court case, I was actually in the Supreme Court when I worked there. I heard it myself. It's up to actually the judges to recuse. Someone could request a recusal, but the Rhode Island law is it's up to the judge. I mean, the prudent thing to do, I think, is if you're faced with that, recuse. But I would just approach each case individually and fairly. I'm proud to say that also in my practice, I have been referred to many times by the other side. So I treat everyone fairly.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Gleason?
Thank you for coming tonight. I guess the only question this probably isn't a big deal for you, but I'll be asking the same question. Sitting on that side of the bench, so to speak, tonight, coming forward and becoming a municipal judge, do you feel any issues that you may have in reversing that kind of role of what you're in your practice?
Not at all. I believe that I'm uniquely qualified in many respects, and particularly in that aspect because of my service on the council, on the state legislature, as a bail commissioner, and so it's really actually second nature.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I would like to add is whether you could see yourself fitting into our budget of $9,410 per year for this position.
Yeah, I understand that is the pay, and I accept that. And again, it's understandable. We call it municipal pay. And again, because also there's not a lot of time. I probably will put in more, you always put in more time than what you are, just like you all do. you know, it's not just the time in those seats. But that is fine.
Thank you.
Ms. Blank, anything pop in? No?
No, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
So the municipal court costs, it comes with a cost. How do you see yourself being able to balance the cost of running the court and allowing yourself to either fine or not fine? And how do you come to those decisions based on the individuals in front of you?
That's a good question, because as an attorney, and especially as a solo, we're business people. We have to pay rent, our rent, our personal expenses, but we also have to pay our office and our staff and overhead. So I'm cognizant of that, and, you know, lawyers are very cognizant of keeping their time. But on the other hand, again, I think you have to strike a balance between compassionate to the person coming before you, listening to what they have to say, if they have a good argument for maybe not for asking for a waiver or a lower fine. But at the same token, balancing the fact that they're there for a reason, and if they violated something or they're due for a fine, it is what it is. You know, they have to pay it because we have to pay all this overhead.
And how do you balance out between frequent flyers who may be there just because they don't have the means to take care of the situation that they're in, and frequent flyers who just thumb their nose at the law?
Another good question. When I was a bail commissioner, for example, it's analogous. Oftentimes it was whether or not, how much to set bail for someone who violated a restraining order. And I always remembered, you know, I believe in erring on the side of caution, because you don't want, and that situation was a little bit different, because if I let the person out and someone gets hurt, you know, I don't want them getting hurt. I don't want to be on the front page of the paper. But there are a lot of people who abuse the system, and those type of people need to be stopped, you know? So I would be on the lookout for that. I would try to prevent that.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions that came up? Figured, okay. So our process tonight is we have the one that was before you. We have 4 others after you. After that, the council will deliberate, and whoever is selected, our HR department will be reaching out, and then we'll establish a service contract for the municipal court judge through our attorneys, and hopefully have somebody on board for the next municipal court meeting, which would be actually the August one. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rice.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having me. I believe I could pick up the ball and run with it. I want to reiterate that I have my 11 years as a deputy sheriff, and then 25 years as an attorney. So 36 years, even though I wish I was only 39, I'm not. But I think I have a varied and unique, highly applicable experience that I could help the town with. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Cosell here.
Thank you for saying Cosell. I just wanted to, I figured it was just like, 2 S's, but that's okay, or 2 L's.
Yeah, there's a more famous gentleman that spells it a little
A
differently.
little bit differently. He sounded different too.
Yes,
Well, thank you very much for coming in this evening.
you're welcome.
We are in the process of trying to fill our municipal court position. We have 6 interviews tonight. We're going to take about 20 minutes with you, and we're going to go around the horn after I give you a few minutes to do a introduction of yourself. The council will ask some questions, and then we'll go from there. So if you want, please take a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Sounds good. So,
Oh, and one other thing, if you can get close to the microphone and speak kind of directly into it, it's a directional mic, and if you don't, nobody can hear you.
so can you hear me well now?
Yes.
Good, okay. So I'm Peter Cosell. I'm a lawyer. I have an office in Newport. I've had an office in Newport for quite a while. I've had a general practice. I've had probably more emphasis in the past on litigation. In the more recent past, though, I've done more arbitrations, some mediations, and in the past, again, I've appeared in the district court, family court, probate court for Newport, probate court for Middletown, a little bit of probate court here, work here, and appeared before some boards and commissions, and that's generally my background. I live in Jamestown. My office is in Newport on Mill Street, and I guess I would just sum up by saying I'm a pretty experienced lawyer, and I think I have the right temperament to sit as a judge.
Do you have any judicial experience at all other than arbitration or mediation?
I'm sorry, say that
Do you
again?
have any direct judicial experience other than being an arbitrator or a mediator?
No, I've never sat as a judge. I've sat again as an arbitrator. I've sat as arbitrator in the single arbitrator panel and in a 3-member panel, and I've sat as a mediator, a sole mediator in a number of occasions, but I have never actually sat as a judge.
All right. Mr. Reese, would you like to start this time around? Microphone, there we go. Thank you, sir.
I'll give you the one that I've asked before. It says a lot of the items and conditions brought forward are based on the town's comprehensive plan and its ordinances. How familiar are you with our town comp plan and our ordinances? Have you reviewed those at all?
Well, I actually, a number of years ago, when Donato DeAndre was solicitor for the town of Portsmouth, we were office mates, and I did some work for Portsmouth back then. So that involved, reviewing contracts, some legal questions, general municipal law, which I was engaged in then for the town. Now, that was a number of years ago. I think the most recent experience in that regard was around 2012, if I'm not mistaken. In terms of ordinances, as a lawyer, I'm pretty familiar with town ordinances, whether be they Portsmouth or Middletown or Jamestown now where I live. So pretty well familiar with town ordinances.
And that, and being we're in a small island, do you have any conflicts of interest which would limit your duties as a municipal court judge?
No, sir, I don't. I don't know if I'm conflict free, but I'm fairly conflict free. Yeah.
And if you did, do you have an alternate as a backup in case there's something that you couldn't do because you had a conflict?
So my thought on that, I thought that your ordinance provided for a case if I had to recuse myself. I think your ordinance does provide that. Yeah.
That I don't know.
Yes, it would be a
Stand corrected.
solicitor.
I stand
Could
corrected.
stand in
Okay.
Yeah.
All
on a
right. well,
case by case basis.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McDowell?
Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you feel are some of the what would be some of the most challenging legal or other issues that would face a municipal court judge?
Probably cases involving housing. For example, questions of housing code violations, cases that I would say that they would be more significant because they involve people's dwellings and very, sort of could involve very emotional situations with people living in dwellings. So that would be one of the areas I would think would be more sensitive, more difficult. Yeah.
Thank you. Neutrality is important in carrying out the position of municipal judge. The island is small, relatively speaking. What does administering the law fairly and justly mean to you?
Well, that's key. I mentioned earlier tonight that I served as an arbitrator and a mediator. And I think in those three areas, the area of being a judge, being a mediator, or being an arbitrator, neutrality, impartiality, fairness, objectivity, those are just key qualities that you have to have. And I do think I have a pretty good judicial temperament.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Blank? Mr. Barrio?
Mr. Costa, if you don't mind going into some, reviewing your resume, you just kind of have a blanket described as general practice of law. And it's kind of a two-part question. Can you go into a little bit more of your judicial experience other than being an arbiter and a mediator? And then at the same time, currently in your profession and where you are in your career, how would you currently describe your current caseload?
Well, I did more, as I said earlier, I did more litigation in the past, and that involved being an advocate for various cases, mostly on the plaintiff side. I've done general civil litigation as a plaintiff's attorney, negligence cases, contract disputes. In probate court, I've handled will contests. So that's a sort of thing that I've done more in the past. Presently, I'm doing more arbitrations, I would say. Those involve civil matters. And of course, in those cases, I'm one of the decision makers.
Have you always been a sole practitioner?
So I mentioned earlier, a number of years ago, I had an office mate, Donato DeAndrea. I have an office mate now, Michael Murray. I've typically had an office mate over the years. And what that means is, you have someone else to be a sounding board from time to time, but technically you're a sole practitioner.
So you're not in partnership with?
Not in a partnership.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Ms. Patton? All set? Mr. Gleason?
Thank you for coming tonight. My question is just sitting on that side of the bench, so to speak, before a judge and now coming to the other side. How will that affect you in your role? I mean, is that something that you think that you would go into easily, and what makes you want to do that?
Well, so thanks for the question. So I do think I have I have a good judicial temperament. I've developed that over the years, sitting as an arbitrator and a mediator, and I've also developed that, I would say, by being an advocate. You're in the courtroom. You understand the judge's role, the decisions the judge has to make, and you learn about that. So without actually having done that, I feel that I'm able to understand the role of a judge and could handle it pretty well. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
The only other thing to add is that the job is budgeted for $9,410 per year. If that would fit into your your request for this position.
Thank you for that question. So the short answer is yes. My understanding is that I believe the court regularly meets once a month, I believe. And I didn't know if at all, if there were special sessions. I didn't know if there would be. But certainly, given the idea that the court's meeting monthly and there might be some special sessions, I would be happy to serve for that amount.
Thank you. I'm not aware of any special sessions, but obviously.
That would be,
Prep work, et cetera.
that would be up to the judge.
Yeah.
That would have to
Okay.
schedule a special session if needed.
For himself.
For a specific, instance.
Yeah.
So we certainly wouldn't schedule any special, I don't think. Haven't yet, so. So my question to you is, there is a balancing act when you're presiding as a municipal court judge. You have to balance the needs of the town, the staff, the time of the staff, and the cost of running a court. How do you balance that while you're instituting fines and also keeping in mind the folks that are in front of you?
Well, I mean, I think that's the crucial challenge of being a judge, I do think, in a municipal setting. You have to be cognizant of the town's budget, and you have to be fair to the people that appear before you. It's just, I think that's the kind of thing when you have experience, as I have had in various areas of the law, I think you can get a grip on that pretty well. But it is a balancing. You have to be fair to the people that appear before you, but cognizant of the town's budgetary concerns. So difficult to answer that in a vacuum, but if I had some specific cases, I could probably give you a better answer on that.
No, I can't give you specific cases, but
Yeah.
how would you handle as has been termed, the frequent flyers? You have your frequent flyers who are there because they don't have the wherewithal to take themselves out of the situation they're in. And then you have your frequent flyers who just tend to thumb their nose at the law. How do you balance out decisions based on those two individuals?
Well, the old rule used to be for me, being in district court, was always you get one bite at the apple. That's kind of the way I look at it. After that, you're at the mercy of the court, I guess. Yeah, I mean, everyone gets one bite at the apple, unless they have a mental disability. And then, of course, you have to get mental health agency involved and work accordingly. But if someone seems to be of a clear mind and they don't seem to be able to follow the law once or twice or three times or four times, I mean, you have to, you speak about balancing, you take that into consideration. So the fine would be proportionally higher, obviously. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any answers stimulate any new questions? No. All right. So our process this evening was going to interview 3 more candidates. We're going to deliberate after we're done at the end, and the chosen candidate will be contacted by our HR department, and then we'll work up a service contract agreement with our solicitor, and we hope to have a municipal court judge in place for the August meeting. You have any questions for us?
No, thank you. Thanks for having me come in and speak to you, and I appreciate the process.
Thank you very much for coming out here.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
Good night, Mr. Cole.
Thank you.
Sure. Do you need one? Oh, okay.
Evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very good.
Thank you for being on time.
Well, thank you. I actually have copies of my resume, which I sent to a letter, and I'm not reading through it for all of this.
Only if you bring your glasses with you. All right, so I thought we were jumping out of order for a second. Yes, we are. Well, my order says Mr. Murray is 40 minutes early. So, and that's Mr. Babish. 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 Thank you, Mr. Babish. is the next one. So you were actually 7:40.
Yes, I knew that.
Okay. Appreciate you being on time. Great. So if you don't mind, it will be about 20 minutes. Mr. Fabish, come on in. Thank you, sir. You made it just under the Lombardi time of 5 minutes early is 15 minutes late. So good evening and welcome to Portsmouth.
Hello.
So this evening, we're having interviews for our municipal court judge. The process will be, we will allow you about a couple minutes to introduce yourself, tell us why you're interested in the position. Then we'll go around the horn with some questions from the council and maybe some follow-up questions based on answers. And it just takes about 20 minutes. And then tonight, after the final interview, the council will have discussions and make a selection at that point. And you'll be contacted by HR if you are selected.
Excellent.
So have at it.
Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for inviting me this evening.
One more thing. Can you just speak directly into the microphone so everybody can hear?
Is it okay to move it?
You can move it. We can pull it towards you. It's just, you got to kind of speak right into, there you go.
Thank you for inviting me this evening. I became aware of the municipal judgeship vacancy through a colleague who was aware of my previous service as the town of Smithfield's probate judge. That was, at this point, almost a decade ago. But I very much enjoyed my time and tenure in that position as an opportunity to give back, and also, excuse me, as an opportunity to, as a lawyer, I appear in front of courts and in front of judges all day, every day. But to take it from the other side and to have an opportunity to understand the way that the presentation of evidence can impact a judge's decision, and to understand the sort of the unique role of a judge compared to that of the litigants, I think allowed me to more effectively represent my clients, and also changed the way that I approached my role as a judge. Most significantly, I think when litigants come before a court, they're looking for a couple of things. First, and most critically, fairness. But how that's interpreted depends on each litigant's position. So we have rules that establish due process, and municipal courts have rules of evidence that need to be applied. It's important for lawyers that that assume roles as judges in municipal courts to have familiarity with the rules of evidence, to have familiarity with the requirements of due process, and to understand the unique jurisdiction of municipal courts and how they fit into the overall system in Rhode Island. And so when looking for fairness, those rules are fundamentally the bulwark, the thing that secures individual liberty and fairness in front of the court. And very often in municipal courts, in probate courts, you have pro se litigants who are not familiar with the rules. And so it's important to hold everybody to the same standard in terms of what and how you apply the rules of evidence and other relevant rules. But it's also important to make sure that litigants don't have an unfair advantage because they don't understand what the rules are. And so I think it's an important opportunity. I know judges who will regularly, for example, instead of saying the rules of evidence apply, encourage litigants to look at the specific statute that might be applicable to their, to their dispute, to look at the particular rules of the court that might be applicable to their dispute. I know a lot of courts, municipal and probate courts now, are sending to individuals who have disputes in front of those courts sort of an outline that explains what the process is. All of that, I think, is critically important. Beyond that, I think the next step in ensuring litigants have a fair opportunity to be heard in front of the court is to make sure that everybody feels as though they've had the opportunity to actually present their case. So I know a lot of judges, especially in busy municipal courts, can try to rush people along because there might be a docket. They've only, they're only meeting typically once or twice a month. There may be a lot of individuals who, who are appearing before the court. Other times there may not be. And so it wasn't uncommon in my tenure in Smithfield, where if we had to have a trial, we would schedule a special session to ensure that the people who actually had to go through this process and weren't looking for an administrative rubber stamp one way or the other, had a full and fair opportunity to present their case to the court and to be fully heard as to, oftentimes very significant issues, whether they're issues relating, in a municipal court jurisdiction to the way that their property can be used, or, that they can derive income from their property, whether whether they're going to be subject to, substantial fines on an ongoing daily basis. These are issues that can have a significant impact on somebody's life. And so, again, having the full and fair opportunity to be heard in front of the court is critical. Lastly is, I think, the balancing that a judge needs to perform between the interests of all the parties in front of the court and the fidelity to what the actual laws say. Because ultimately, I've many times had to make a ruling that I didn't appreciate having to tell one side or the other, you've lost because of some aspect of the dispute in front of us. The facts generally should establish, the resolution of the case. And I think it's oftentimes a tragic feature of our system that occasionally the individuals who present evidence to a court can so significantly impact the outcome that the facts aren't actually the driving feature. In my court, I want to make sure that the driving feature of the resolution of any dispute are the actual facts as they exist on the ground and as I see them, as a judge. And so those are the primary aspects and elements of my jurisprudence and my approach to jurisprudence. And I welcome the council's questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that introduction. And based on what you just said, being that you are from out of town, Smithfield, how do you feel like you'll be able to budget the time that you would need to come down here and potentially investigate if it's a zoning or land use difference in going by the actual property to view it, so you have a visual of what people are talking about? The stipend for this position is only $9,400, doesn't carry any travel expenses or stipends with it. So how do you think you'd be able to balance that in terms of being able to investigate those potential situations and be able to rule those with being from Smithfield?
Sure. So I view this position primarily. I know that there's a stipend that's attached to it. I'm certainly, if I'm selected, appreciative of the stipend. I had actually submitted a request, I think to have the position compensated at $6,000 a year, which is what my compensation was, when I had previously served. I view this position primarily as one of public service, and so that's the primary driver of my interest in it. I am in courts in Fall River and New Bedford, typically 2 to 3 times a week. And so it's not an inconvenience for me to, swing down 24 and drive by a property, as long as it's typically, if I were to do something like that, I would want it scheduled so that all the litigants, at least, either the representatives of the litigants or the litigants themselves could be present at the time that I was there. I think it borders on sort of ex parte investigation to take that approach without at least informing the parties that you're doing that. But to schedule that wouldn't impose an inconvenience. In addition, I have an office in Bristol that I appear in typically 1 to 2 days a week as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ms. Patton, you want to start? All right.
Hi, thank you for coming. Just have a question as far as how familiar you are with the town codes and the ordinances here in Portsmouth.
Familiar enough in terms of both having represented parties before the Portsmouth zoning board fairly recently. Actually, excuse me, it was the planning board fairly recently. Beyond that, I did look at the individual, certainly the ordinance that establishes the jurisdiction of the municipal court before coming. I had investigated sort of distinctions in the Portsmouth municipal ordinances and zoning regulations, minimum housing regulations, compared to state standards. A lot of this stuff is fairly standard across the state. When an enforcement official brings an action to the municipal court, or when a defendant, brings an argument, they're typically going to be pointing out the specific provisions that are at dispute, or that are in dispute. And so regardless of whether I'm adjudicating a case as a judge or arguing a case as a lawyer, the first and essential task in doing that is to look specifically at the text of whatever the alleged violation or legal issue is. And so that's the answer, I think.
Thank you. Just one other question. As you said, you've been in front of the planning board. Are there any conflicts that you see as far as if you would take the position for?
No.
or-
No current matters that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
If one were to arise, how would you approach that?
I would recuse in accordance with the ordinance and have I believe it's the probate judge steps in. I'll do that. And the council has the ability to appoint an interim to address that particular issue.
Mr. Reese?
Yes, this is an easy one. I just was curious. You sound like you're a busy guy. How does this position fit in with your existing schedule and practice?
Every case, every obligation that a lawyer takes on, imposes, a spot on the schedule. I think it's just a question of prioritizing, different roles at different times. And so when I have 4 children, when 3 of them were younger, that was a very significant factor in sort of curtailing, for example, my teaching responsibilities. I used to teach a community college up at Massasoit. I don't do that anymore because I made the choice that it was more important to spend time throwing a baseball with my son than it was to teach. And I'll get back to teaching eventually. At this point, I have an opportunity, I think, to serve Portsmouth and Rhode Island more generally. And I'm excited about this opportunity. So I don't think it would be a burden on my schedule. I don't have any current service on any Smithfield boards. When I had been selected, to that court, I had served on 3 or 4 municipal boards. Currently, my focus, like I said, had been on my family and on my professional endeavors. So this, I think, would fit in quite nicely, particularly given, for me, it's not that far of a drive.
Do you have any other duties that would bring you to the island anyway, like any other boards or towns?
No, not at this time. I had previously served as legal counsel to the town of the town of Tiverton's zoning and building departments. Currently, what brings me to this neck of the woods is my office in Bristol. I had very early in my career maintained an office in Newport, so I hang out here.
Let's hope they don't close the bridge.
Yeah, I heard that they're taking down the Mount Hope for 4 days. That's going to be a nightmare.
Nah, piece of cake. You'll be all right. It's on the weekend. You won't be working. You'll be throwing the ball with your kid. Ms. McCall?
Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you feel are some of the most challenging legal and other issues facing a municipal court judge?
I think I spoke a little bit to it in my opening remarks. There are judges in Rhode Island who I've had conversations with, Superior Court judges who I've had conversations with who say they never go to bed, feeling uncomfortable with what they did that day. I think that's the wrong approach to the law. So I think any particular issue on any particular day can present a compelling issue where you feel strongly from a policy standpoint that the outcome should be different from what the law requires that it be. But your responsibility as a municipal court judge is to uphold the law and do so, I think, compassionately. And that's probably the piece that where where I had mentioned that I changed my approach to the bench. I think that's probably the most significant one. I try to deal with everybody who appears in front of me compassionately, but that doesn't mean that they get a free pass on what the requirements of the law are. So I think that's probably the biggest struggle that any municipal court judge or any judge generally faces, depending on their approach to the law and their particular jurisprudence. That said, I know where I fall on that, which is, I have to enforce the law.
Thank you. Without giving specifics, what has been the most difficult case you have been involved in your career, and why was it difficult?
Probably the most difficult case that I can think of, and one that I'm also particularly proud of, is a case where I had to face a judge that I had appeared in front of, not regularly, but not infrequently either. I was familiar with the judge. She had made a ruling in a case that involved a child welfare matter. And if her comment and ruling had stood, my client would have lost forever custody of her child. And I had to ask the judge to recuse, both orally and then in a written 24-page motion, where essentially you're telling the judge that they've impugned their own integrity, right? That the reason that a judge has to recuse is either because they've prejudged a case or because they've made statements that an objective observer would suggest means that they prejudged the case. And in this particular case, we think it was actually more the statements than the fact that she had actually prejudged. We actually think that the statements that she had made relating to how she was likely to rule based on the evidence that she had seen were sort of telegraphing for the litigants that they may want to take one approach as opposed to another. I think she was trying to encourage settlement. But my client didn't want to do that. And based on the statements that she made, we asked her to recuse. She actually did. And 9 months later, my client regained custody of her child.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry, any questions?
A couple. Mr. Favish, yeah?
Favish.
Favish, thank you. I apologize for that. Someone that has their last name butchered all the time. If you don't mind me asking, and please indulge my questioning, who was your colleague that let you know about this position?
Daniel Riley.
All right. In this position, the individual that normally comes and can fill in for the municipal court judge is the town solicitor. As based on your previous experience in both in Tiverton and in your related experience, and we'll say also with, I'm sorry, I kind of went full blown crazy ex-girlfriend internet searches on most of the candidates. Previous experience of yours that seem to be omitted from your resume, you have a professional and what seems like a personal relationship with the town solicitor. Would that create a conflict for you if he was to submit, if he would have to step in your place for that?
I don't believe so. I think if there were ever that sort of a conflict, first of all, I do have the utmost respect for the town solicitor. Although truth be told, we haven't spoken in probably over a year at this point. If there were ever an issue where it did create some sort of a conflict, I would imagine certainly I would flag, and I believe he would flag as well, that issue to the council, and I believe the council could in fact appoint on an interim basis. So I think that's how that would resolve itself, but I can't conceive of any situation where it would actually be an issue. We have no ongoing professional relationship. I would consider him a friend.
And with no insinuation whatsoever, your position as the probate judge in Smithfield ended in January 15. Would you care to explain as to why?
There was a change in political control of the council.
Okay.
The council in Smithfield is elected on a partisan basis, and
And then also given your past experience on the Hopkins Center and then also your time as the executive director and general counsel of the state Republican Party, how would you say that that will influence your judicial philosophy when making decisions?
I don't think it would.
All set? Ms. Blank, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gleason?
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I think you may have answered the question, but I'll give you another shot at it. And you've served once for a year, I guess, as a probate judge. So that's, if I read it right, that's the closest you've become to being a judge, a judicial position. What makes you the person that would be able to sit on this side of the bench now and perform the duties of a judge?
I was young when I was appointed to the Smithfield bench, but I don't think I was unqualified. Certainly, by the terms of the ordinance, I wasn't unqualified, and that judgeship found me. The town council president at the time called me up and said, "Are you interested in, serving in this capacity?" I had previously been the chairman of the Smithfield Planning Board. And prior to that, the vice chairman of the Smithfield Planning Board. So I had a career both professionally and from a public service standpoint where I've been engaged in land use issues. So I certainly bring that background to the bench. Beyond that, I now have an additional decade of litigation experience. I've appeared in front of good judges, I've appeared in front of bad judges. I've taken bits and pieces, both as as a lawyer and eventually, whether it be in this capacity or in some other capacity, where I'm called upon to adjudicate disputes. Little bits and pieces from every judge that you appear in front of, and so I think those attributes that I spoke to at the beginning, fairness. I would suggest that I do have, a deep interest and appreciation in the law. I study the law academically as well as professionally. There are lawyers who are great lawyers because they can process their clients' cases quickly and get them good judgments and good results that allow their clients to move on in their life from whatever issue is in front of them. Typically, that's not me. When I appear in court, most often the capacity is as an appellate litigator. So my focus is on reading the law carefully and in a detailed manner so that I get it right. And then as a lawyer, convincing the judge that my perspective is appropriate. As a judge, being able to carefully explain that either in a written, in a written document that's subject to appeal. Municipal court decisions are generally subject to appeal without a need for findings of fact and conclusions of law, but it doesn't occasionally happen that you need to do that as well. So my faculty and ability with the law, I of course bring to the bench as does every lawyer that applies for a position like this. And finally is the judicial experience that I think many of the other applicants don't have.
Thank you.
All right, one last question, I think, we'll see. How would you find yourself being able to balance folks who show up as habitual or frequent flyers that are there mainly because they don't have the wherewithal to get out of the situation versus those who are habitual frequent flyers just because they like to thumb their nose at the law?
I think you've kind of put your nose on exactly one of the issues that presents in front of a municipal judge, or any judge that has to balance a significant penalty or fine power. I mean, I think that's the answer. The answer is, first of all, without crossing the line from judge into advocate, you need to make some attempt to inquire on the record what the reason for the particular violations are. As somebody in front of you then answers, you need to be able to make a credibility determination based off of the record, based off of your understanding of, you know, the issues that have come before you in that particular case. And if you carry experience from previous cases, the law does say that you know, judges are allowed to consider the fact that a particular litigant has appeared in front of them before, right? That's why we have escalating penalties in criminal cases. So, you know, you have to make some degree of inquiry or hope that the lawyers that are presenting the case in front of you have already addressed those particular issues. And then, you know, you use your discretion as a jurist to say, I'm going to realize that a $10 penalty on a daily basis for this individual who's working a minimum wage job, who just can't seem to figure out how to correct the defect on their property, may be as penalizing as you know, some more significant penalty for somebody who is, like you said, thumbing your nose at the law. You know, that said, equal justice under the law is critically important as well. And so it's not as though the individual with the tough life circumstance is entirely allowed to skate. It's a question of what's an appropriate sanction given all of the facts that are in front of the court.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions that popped up for counselors? No? I appreciate you coming down this evening and taking the time. Process, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to interview 2 more candidates. We'll have discussions and deliberations afterwards, and we'll be reaching out to the selected candidate after that with our HR department. All right. Any questions or comments?
No, just I appreciate the council's having me this evening, and I look forward to possibly being able to serve you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Gabriel.
Good evening. How is everyone?
We're well, thank you. Thank you for coming in this evening and appearing before us to interview for our municipal court position. I believe you had the longest commute today. Since I'm assuming you're at your law office and.
Well, I was actually in New Bedford today, so it wasn't quite as far.
Okay. So this evening, we're going to have 6 candidates. We're going to interview all 6. We're going to have deliberations after the final interview, and we'll be making a decision this evening. The selected candidate will be contacted by our HR department. And then we will have a services contract written up for that position. And we hope to have a municipal court judge in place for our next municipal court session, which would be in August, the 20th, I believe was the date. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself, tell us why you're interested in a position, and then we'll go around the horn with the council.
Sure.
And ask questions.
All right. Well, my name's Kevin Gabriel. I was born in Portsmouth. I lived here in Rhode Island up until I was 23 years old. I went down to Miami, Florida for law school. I practiced in Florida for 14 years, lived there for 17, moved back here in 2022 to the house I grew up in on Union Street, and been here since. And I was actually on the website for Town Hall, and I was looking up trash collection days, and I saw that they had an opening for the municipal judge. So I thought, I've been wanting to get involved in the community a little bit, and, you know, having my roots here and coming back, and hadn't really done anything with it. So I thought, you know, that sounds like a good thing. And I read through some of the town ordinances, and it seemed like it was digestible information. And I tried to do a little research on prior rulings and stuff, but I didn't see anything published, so which didn't surprise me, but made it a little difficult to really research the material. But I've been a litigator for my entire career, the last, let's say since 2018, 2019, focusing entirely on actual, bodily injury trial work, and trying cases. So I've got a lot of courtroom time, a lot of courtroom experience. Now, I don't have I saw some of this is, or a significant portion is zoning issues and things like that. I don't have a ton of experience with that, but I did read through some of the ordinances and I thought, this is something that I could learn pretty quickly and pick up. And I've been interested in looking to a jurist position. Currently, I practice for the law office of John Manoog, which is in Massachusetts. The practice is entirely within the state of Massachusetts. They don't do anything in Rhode Island. I do have a case or two right now that's pending in the state of Florida, but I reviewed the ethics for the Rhode Island judiciary, and it did not seem to indicate that there would be any sort of conflict there, as it basically says if you can't practice in any court that might have appellate jurisdiction over that. I can't imagine that anything in Massachusetts or Florida would have appellate jurisdiction over the municipal position in Portsmouth. So a lot of my current work is it's all litigation, it's all active litigation. I don't do any real contract work or anything like that at this point in my career. Most of it's focused on trial and trial preparation.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Gleason, Mr. Reese,
Yes.
to my left. And
Do you have any municipal court experience at all?
So I do have some experience litigating, not necessarily in a municipal court, but down in Miami. It's small claims, like traffic type court sort of situation where I one of my major clients down there was a waste removal company, and every now and then their drivers would get a ticket or they'd get an accident and they'd end up in front of a municipal magistrate for that purpose. So I do have some experience in that, but in complete candor, nothing such as zoning ordinances or dog bite situations that it seemed that a lot of the ordinances in Portsmouth seem to focus on.
And Aquidneck Island is a small island. Do you have any conflicts of interest which would limit your duties as a municipal court judge?
I can't imagine that I would. The only thing that I could think about is I will be owning the property on Union Street that my parents currently own and name that I live in. I don't foresee that as being an issue. I can't imagine. That house was built in the 50s and there's been no additions on it since the 80s. So I don't think, but things can come up, and I certainly would have no problem if I see a conflict that is a clear conflict. Do you have a way of recusing? Is there anyone else that could pick something up? I guess would be the follow-up question to that, because you certainly don't want to be in a situation where you have no one that can make a ruling. But I don't have any practice in the state of Rhode Island. I don't have any practice right now on Aquidneck Island. I don't have any lawsuits. I am obviously licensed in the state of Rhode Island, but I have no active practice here at the moment.
Thank you.
Ms. McDowell?
Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you feel could be some of the most challenging legal or other issues that would face a municipal court judge?
So, in order to really answer your question properly, I'd have to have a better idea of the caseload that the judge handles. But from the top of my head, what it seems like to me, a lot of this is going to be or could be dealing with permit issuances, things like that, of that nature. I think as a municipal judge, the thing that you're going to run into that's going to be more challenging than anything else is balancing the fact that you're a jurist in the town that you're you're serving, and therefore you may know individuals that you're going to be that are going to be in front of you. And I don't anticipate that causing a problem for me. I've been gone for 17 years. Most of the people that I knew in this town have moved out or, one way or the other are no longer here. Besides, my parents for 3 months in the summer. So I don't really foresee that as being an issue at all for me. But again, it's having not been a jurist in the past, is certainly not in this type of position. This will certainly have a learning curve for me. And it would certainly be the kind of thing where I would have to, if possible, I would like to speak to the outgoing judge if he's still around and available, just to sort of pick his brain and find out, the basis of most of what his caseload was, and like I said, I did attempt to do some research on prior opinions, but it doesn't seem like much is published, which makes it very difficult to try and figure out what exactly is going on in these chambers. But like I said, from reviewing the ordinances, it seemed like a very digestible amount of material. It seemed like a digestible amount of information that I would have to be responsible for. Like I said, though, I think the most difficult thing would be, one, getting my feet under me and really getting to know what the caseload is going to entail. And two, understand that your rulings have real life consequences for the people that live in this town. And obviously, as someone who lives here, knowing someone who's in front of you can sometimes cause a conflict, but I think that happens to every jurist everywhere that the law is practiced. So nothing that I think would be out of the ordinary or, nothing that would be insurmountable.
Thank you. So what does administering the law fairly and justly mean to you?
So the first part of that there's several things that go into the fair administration of justice. The first part is knowing the law, right? You have to know what the law says and how it's previously been interpreted in order to justly adjudicate it, right? I think everyone can agree upon that. The other part about that is you have to know the history of the law, and you have to know what its effects are going to be. You have to see what the ramifications of your decisions might be. I don't believe in outcome dictated justice. I think that, generally speaking, the law is going to give you an answer. It's going to tell you how you should be ruling. There is some room for equity in that. I do believe that the law is not without equity and it's not without compassion. But generally speaking, as a jurist, you're limited to the letter of the law and what it says. The issue comes in when you have conflicts, right? When you have, well, this law says that, and in this scenario, it seems to lead to this decision, but you have someone else over here who has, well, I am required to do X under this law, so how do we reconcile those things? And you look, generally speaking, to what has been done in the past. In this situation, you look to precedent, and at the end of the day, you are going to be asked at times to substitute your common sense and what is best for everybody involved that follows the law to the best of your ability. And I think that as a judge, that's really as much as you can ask for a jurist, as someone who's been a lawyer and been in that courtroom and listened to those arguments and listened to those decisions. And also as, trying to look at it from their perspective, I think that most judges are trying to do exactly that. And they are trying to follow the law and they are trying to get to the correct decision. I think as a judge, you're not trying to be right. You're trying to get it right. And there is a difference between those two things. Your job is to find the correct answer. And hopefully you have skilled litigants who are going to make skilled arguments in front of you that you can take from and learn from.
Thank you. Without giving specifics, what has been the most difficult case you have been involved in your career, and why was it difficult?
That's not a hard question. Excuse me. I recently litigated a case and tried it out in Barnstable County, where my client was a minor on a skateboard and he suffered a traumatic brain injury, life-changing kind of thing. And I took the case. The liability situation was terrible. It was a horrible liability situation. The evidence showed that he skated in front of traffic on a red light. But I took the case knowing that it was probably going to lose. And I let the client know that, and I let his parents know that, but I told them, we're going to try our hardest and we're going to litigate this thing and we're going to see where it goes. So we went to jury trial in Barnstable Superior Court this past March, and We tried the case for 4 days and we lost. And the hardest thing as a lawyer is looking at a client that you want to help, that you tried to help, and having not been able to do so. That was the hardest for me, but that wasn't the hardest technically. I mean, that wasn't a situation where I didn't know what to do. I knew what to do. I just knew it was going to be incredibly difficult to try to get the outcome that we wanted. The hardest for me is it's usually whatever the new thing is that you have to do that you didn't know how to do, right? And you have to, a lot of lawyers, anyone who's practiced law is going to tell you at some point in time, you were told to do something that you had no idea how to even start doing. And you had to go to friends and colleagues and mentors to ask and find out, what is the correct course of action here? What are the motions I'm supposed to file? Where should I be looking for the correct administrative law on this particular issue? And so, a hundred of times in my career, I've been asked to draft a motion that I've never drafted before, or draft a memo on an area of law that I've never practiced before. And then you have to become an expert on that. And that's always incredibly technically difficult when you have to learn a new area of law. But by the time, I'm sure all the candidates in front of you could answer the exact same way on that particular issue. But that's part of the job. The hardest part is dealing with the human factor, to me anyway.
Thank you.
Ms. Blank? Mr. Chair? Mr. Gleason?
Thank you. I've asked this question of all the candidates, and you're in a unique category, mostly focused on bodily injury. So now you're wanting to come in as a municipal judge for dog bites, wastewater systems, motor vehicle accidents, things of that nature. What makes you the person that can go from that side of the bench to being a judge in the town of Portsmouth?
Well, I think there's a few things in play there. I think the first is, I think any candidate that you have that is going to be up for a municipal position, unless they're very specific litigation history is within municipal court in townships, is going to have a transitional period where they're going to have to learn, okay, this is the bulk of this practice. This is the bulk of this caseload. This is the area of law that I need to really learn and understand in order to properly adjudicate these claims or, these cases. Think, why will I be able to do it? I'm willing to put in the time. And I think that's the answer for everybody is, if you're going to go and do something new and something different, you have to be willing to put in the time. And that is simply a matter of willpower and want to, right? And I have that. And I think that a job such as this, I believe it's 1 day a month. I'm not sure how many cases the judge sees in that 1 day a month. I don't know if that's 1 day and then it's actually another 2 weeks worth of drafting. Not sure. But as I said, I grew up in this town and I came back to this town after almost 2 decades down in Florida because I wanted to be here. And I still want to be here, and I'd like to contribute in some capacity. So why would I be able to do it? Because I want to do it. But beyond that, I've been fairly successful in my career. I'm pretty good at grasping new concepts legally and otherwise, and I think that I'd be able to adequately fill this position.
Thank you. Also, we have budgeted $9,410 for the position. You're right. It's once, typically, I would say 20 to 24 cases once a month. So that is what we're offering. Any issues there?
Yeah, I'm not here for the money.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. One question for you in terms of balancing the clientele that'll be in front of you.
Mhm.
You have your frequent flyers or habitual offenders that may not be able to get themselves out of the situation that they're in. And then you have habitual frequent flyers who just kind of thumb their nose at the law. How would you balance those two types of individuals who may be here in front of you on a regular basis?
Well, I think that is, it's going to really come down to the individual and what you see coming from that person. I don't have a ton of patience when I feel that my patience is not being returned, right? Or I'm not seeing effort out. Everyone messes up. Okay. No one in this room, I think, can say that they've lived a perfect life and done everything the right way and have never had cause, maybe not been brought in front of a judge, but never had cause to be brought in front of a judge. And the law certainly allows for second chances. It certainly allows for leniency. However, at a certain point, you have to balance the benefit to the community of whatever it is that's happening. And obviously, if an individual is going through a very difficult time and an individual is showing, I'll use the example of drug court. I worked I was a assistant public defender in Miami in 2000 and I'm going to say 6, but it could have been 2007. Please don't hold that against me. And as a public defender in Miami, you saw people at their worst on a daily basis. But you'd also see people who came in front of you, or not in front of me, in front of the judge. As a public defender, I would be defending them, and they turn their lives around. So it does. Some of it does work. Some of the drug intervention does work. I do believe that. But eventually, if you show a callous disregard for the law and for the people around you, then there are consequences. How would I balance it? I would hope that I would be able to balance it fairly and justly, and that you take into account the full picture and not just necessarily what you saw from an individual on their worst day.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions from the counselors? No.
I don't really have a follow-up question, but tell your dad I said hello, Dave Reese.
Oh, I'll let him know.
I graduated with him.
Oh, from Portsmouth High School? Wow. He just retired a couple of years ago. They're down in Florida most of the year, but they're home right now. I'll let him know.
Thank you very much for coming in this evening. Our process will be, we have one more interview. We're going to deliberate after that, and we'll be making decisions tonight. The selected candidate will be reached out to by our HR department, and then we'll have a services contract written up and hope to have a judge in place for our August meetings.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
And now the patient one got here really early. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Murray. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. I didn't intend to jump the line, but I thought maybe things were moving along and
We're never that lucky.
yeah.
So we appreciate you coming in this evening.
Oh, thank you.
We're having interviews for our municipal court position. You are our final candidate this evening. We will be deliberating after we are done with you.
Okay.
We'll be making a decision this evening. Our HR department will then reach out to the selected candidate to set up a services contract, and we're hoping to have a judge in place for our August meeting, which is the 20th of
Okay.
August. Okay. We're going to give you a couple minutes to talk about yourselves. Let us know why you're interested in the position, why you'd be qualified for the position, and then we'll go around the horn with some questions, and we'll allow you some follow-up afterwards. So take it away.
Well, happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to date myself. I graduated from De La Salle Academy in Newport in 1969, went to Holy Cross in an ROTC scholarship, had 4 years of active duty in the Navy, stayed in the reserves, went to law school, and had various billets over the years in the Navy Reserves and retired in 1993, 20 years after I entered. Had the honor of serving as a law clerk in federal court after graduation from law school. Went into private practice with a small firm in Providence, Gardner, Sawyer, Gates, and Sloan. Did trial work for them, mostly the woman that was the senior partner, Ada Sawyer, we did probate litigation. I have been appointed several times as a special master by the Superior Court for real estate disputes. Was a hearing officer for 3 years as a part-time job for the Department of Labor and Training, writing decisions, issuing decisions much like you would in municipal court. And it was also the trial counsel for the Supreme Court, worked as the assistant disciplinary counsel and trial counsel, and had the opportunity to do that for 2 terms, 1 year. I'm admitted to practice before the state of Rhode Island, the federal court, and also quite proud of the fact, although I've never argued before them, the United States Supreme Court in Washington. Father of 3 great daughters, 8 grandchildren, and full-time resident of Newport, live there full-time. Don't go south. My wife doesn't like to fly. So we're here year round. Go to work every morning and enjoy that. Go to the Navy gym every day at noontime and come back to the office, practice. Like to sail. My fleet is now down to a 12-foot Cape Dory sailing dinghy, but I know a lot of people with nice boats, which, you know, is probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I'd be honored, well, just to be here and get the opportunity to present myself to you. But I have sat on the other side of the table as a judge, as a hearing officer, and have been trial counsel before for the Supreme Court in Rhode Island. So I think I have the experience. Certainly, I would enjoy the opportunity. And I think the most important thing is to be prepared, to know the calendar, to know the different ordinances which I've gone through. I was on the planning board in Newport for a couple of terms, and on the Historic District Commission as a commissioner, which was probably the less pleasant of the 2 opportunities to serve on boards. That was a tough one, but have been involved with all the ordinances in Newport's other municipalities. I've done extensive planning and zoning, representing developers, objectors, and spent probably too many nights out at planning and zoning board hearings and presenting and representing individuals. So that's pretty much practicing for a long time, enjoying it. I have a great love of the law. I believe in being prepared and getting and I think I was going to throw this in as my closing remarks, but I think Portsmouth is a wonderful town, and I do some real estate transactions, so I've been here for the town clerk, and they're always helpful, always friendly, always have a smile on their face. So it's a pleasure to come here as opposed to some of the other town halls. So my sense is that it would be great people to deal with. So,
Thank you. Appreciate that. Having said that, do you anticipate any conflicts as a municipal court judge specifically with the business that you do have within the town?
No, actually, I don't. I have represented a number of people in town on real estate transactions. I've represented several before planning and zoning boards. but those are essentially one-time contacts. I have done some estate planning for some of them, but I have no active, nor do I anticipate any active clients being involved here before the town. So I
one
would
of
have
the-
no conflicts.
If one of your previous clients that you've done land work for were to have a dispute with their neighbor, how would you anticipate handling that? Would you recuse yourself in a,
Well, I would definitely, if I had represented someone in the past, I would have to recuse myself. That's clear, certainly. My experience from having worked with the Supreme Court and definitely recusal.
great. Who wants to start? I'll give people the option. Ms. McDowell? Nobody else wants to jump forward? I'll give it to you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So what do you feel would be some of the most challenging legal or other issues facing a municipal court judge?
Well, I think the short-term rentals and the seasonal rentals and that fact that while not being a college town, you certainly do have Roger Williams right across the bridge, and I know they have a dorm here, and I think less than 25% of your homes here are rentals, but I'm certain that some of the issues pertain, like we see in Newport, to students or summer rentals. So I think that would probably turn out to be the most difficult in dealing, particularly, I'm a strong believer that neighbors have rights and that laws should be enforced. So, but that's, I would think, just looking at the list here, the animal code violations and the next short-term rental violations, that would be my opinion, that it would probably be the short-term rentals.
Thank you. What does administering the law fairly and justly mean to you?
Just what it says. I think you have to be familiar with the ordinance. I think you have to be knowledgeable about them. I think that if there's a violation brought, you probably need to talk with the inspectors and the building officials and definitely find out why it was the violation was filed. You have to be familiar with the ordinance, and I think everyone's entitled to a fair hearing, but I have a great feeling for the folks that work in the towns and the cities and the work they do. And I know they do a lot of, before a violation is issued, they generally do a lot of counseling with the individuals themselves. So I think to be fair is you follow the ordinance and you enforce the ordinance.
Thank you. And without giving specifics, what has been the most difficult case you have been involved in your career, and why was it difficult?
Probably the most interesting, and I think the most difficult is at one point I did a lot of work and still do some for Meeker Insurance, and that now it's an enormous company, but I had represented them and we got injunctive relief to stop Old Stone Bank, which is no longer in existence, building what they wanted, 2 new buildings. And it's at the site in Providence on the river where Hemingway's is in the building. That original plan was 2 buildings. And you'll note now that there's a park. The courthouse is here, Hemingway's is here. There used to be, that is the world's widest bridge, according to Guinness Book of World Records. But there's a public easement, was never recorded, but a public right-of-way by prescriptive right. And we were able to enforce that. It went to the Supreme Court, was never a published case. But I think arguing with the attorneys for the developers for Old Stone Bank, was probably the most interesting, and a lot of briefs, a lot of research. And we finally were able to resolve it and show that we were correct, that there was in fact a prescriptive easement. And if you ever go to Providence, which I do not do frequently anymore, you'll note that there's just one building and not two, and there's a public park where there used to be a road where people would cross the bridge at that particular site. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yes, thank you. How does this position fit in with your existing schedule and practice?
Fairly good. I would have no objection. I go to the office every morning. I understand it's the third Wednesday of every week at 9 o'clock. I'm an early bird, so I have no, I have some grandchildren in Atlanta that I will go down and see a couple times a year, but certainly that would not affect my schedule. So that wouldn't affect my schedule at all. I'd welcome the opportunity. And as I said, I'm in the office every day and enjoy the legal profession.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Patton, Nicholas?
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thanks.
Good. This is, how do you balance enforcing town zoning laws with the community needs and development interest?
Well, you folks are elected officials. You have a comprehensive plan. And I think the comprehensive plan should be followed. I think in just being passing through Portsmouth and doing business here, residential real estate, I've noticed there's a lot of development. And I think that the zoning laws should be enforced. I don't think there should be any special deals. I think if there's violations or the building officials feel that things are not copacetic, that the code should be and the ordinance should be enforced. I no longer, I have done a lot of zoning and planning in the past. I've represented builders, developers, and I do not now. And so I would go on the side of enforce the ordinance, enforce the code, enforce what has been approved under the comprehensive plan and what's been approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. So.
Ms. Blank, Mr. Barrero, Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, sir, for coming tonight. Just to clarify, it's, and I think you've had this in mind that you're right. It's the third Wednesday of every month. You don't have to come every week. It's just.
Yeah, oh, yes, you're right. I'm
So,
sorry.
I think-
Yes,
I
I could be here every week if you
Okay.
want, but no,
That being said.
Yes.
The job is budgeted for $9,410 per year, which you'd be getting a lot less money coming weekly, so maybe it'll work.
yeah.
It sounds like you have various diverse background. Why would you be the right candidate to come from that side of the bench, so to speak, to being now the judge?
Probably age and experience. No, I would find it, I think, enjoyable. Love the fact that I practice law. Even in the Navy, I stayed as a line officer surface. I never went to the dark side and became a JAG. I was 7 years of sea duty, and when I had the opportunity to go to law school, I grabbed that opportunity and haven't looked back since. And one thing about the law, it affords you the opportunity to do various things. So be a corporate lawyer, you can be in general practice, you can be a trial attorney, you can focus on family court, something I never did, but I think that I do an excellent job and would be proud of the fact that I was the municipal court judge for Portsmouth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're going to see a lot of, if you were chosen as the judge, you would see a lot of different cases, and you would see some potential habitual frequent flyers, and they come in a couple of different varieties. Frequent flyers because they can't handle the situation and they're in for whatever reason, and frequent flyers who just like to thumb their nose at the law.
Right.
How would you balance adjudicating each of those types of clients?
Well, I think the ones that frequent flyers that they have their certain addictions, you know, I would like to see that anyone that has an addiction gets the proper care and treatment. And I think maybe that part of that care and treatment is making sure that the laws are enforced and you're not an enabler, and you're able to enforce the law, and at the same time make sure that whatever public services are available, that they're able to take advantage of them. With respect to people that are just flaunting the law, I believe that the ordinances should be enforced, and that would be if the proper evidence is submitted, that they should be enforced, and as a municipal court judge, I would do that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions that came up? Mr. Murray, thank you very much.
Well,
for putting
thank
in
you.
this
Thank
evening.
you all.
We are going to deliberate now for a few minutes, and we'll be making a decision this evening, and our HR will reach out to the selected candidate. We appreciate you driving all the way out to the other end of the island.
All the way out. Wasn't bad. There wasn't that much traffic.
Just be safe on East Main Road, and hopefully your fillings will stay in on the way home.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we have 6 diverse candidates, each with individual backgrounds that have different sides to them and different experiences. Sure, absolutely. I'm just giving some of my comments at the beginning. I have a couple of candidates that stood out and a couple of candidates that, in a good way, and some couple of candidates that stood out in a less good way. I think they are all technically qualified, but I think there were some that stood out in my mind above them. So we can either go around the horn, or if anybody wants to start. Mr. Reese, you want to start?
We'll give it a shot here. Okay, the first one was Alicia Anthony. She was qualified, interested, enthusiastic, willing to learn. There's a drawback. She seems to just, it's a nice person. She seems to just want to help, not fine or punish anyone. She wants to almost become an advocate and not a judge. And as far as what you were mentioning, funding the court and all that, that could be a drawback.
Agreed.
That was that one. Mr. Murray, he's a Newport local. He can dedicate the time. He can be reached for special, arraignments or whatever. He's been involved in Newport zoning and planning cases. He was a probate litigator, doesn't see any conflicts, and knows the importance of the comprehensive plan, that it should be followed to control zoning. Mr. Cosell seems like he can dedicate the time to give the job full attention. He's just a Jamestown resident, so he's very available for off-schedule requirements. Seems very qualified, very calm, and answered questions well. Will work for the funding provided. He answered to be very fair in the fines and penalties, but realized the court has to be funded. And then he takes into account the weaknesses and limitations of people before the court. And you want to go through them all?
That's okay.
That's okay, but that's just, the engineers do this stuff.
That's fine.
Mr. Fabish, very qualified, but he actually must come out of town for any special needs. He's a very busy person and may not adequately been able to give the proper time to the task. But with fines and penalties, he was the same way. He balances fairness with fines and penalties, and know each person is different.
Gabriel and Rice.
Amy Rice? No. I just found her answers all over the place, nothing really specific, but I didn't get what I needed to get from her as far as content. All right. And Mr. Gabriel is young and inexperienced, and I don't think he's basically was an ambulance chaser type thing. So,
We can't disqualify him because he's.
no, but he probably could do the job.
Yes.
I would say he could do the job. It's just that and it's not his fault. He's just young. There's no experience. So now do you want to, one other time you did this we'll vote for 3 or however you want to do it.
You can do it any way anybody wants.
All right, well, that's
Ms. Patton,
what
anything
I
else?
found, so.
Yep.
Sure. I actually liked Alicia Anthony, with the experience. I liked the fact that she would, do it for no fee. And then Michael Murray, I liked as well. Retired, has the experience on the zoning and planning board, no conflict, schedule's okay. I would just say those were my top 2.
Okay. I would caution that, be careful what you pay for. Where sometimes you get what you pay for if you get something for free. But
Right, I understand that.
this, the first candidate.
She was willing to do it. She wasn't looking for the,
Mr. Murray.
Michael Murray.
Ms. Payero?
I would have to agree with Charlene on this one. Miss Anthony was my first pick, and I don't think that her thing was, I think that she said that she would do it for free. I think it's a statement of like, she's not in it for the money. And, but I think her approach on how she would handle cases, I think that a level of empathy is not a necessarily bad thing. But I think that in her answer, she explained that she would have no problem balancing the need to be punitive, but then at the same time, a necessity to be empathetic about what situations are. Ms. Rice, I think, is, yes, wholly qualified to do the job, but I'm a little concerned just about her very long-standing relationship in the town, which can become a burden, especially when it comes to conflicts of interest. Mr. Gabriel, Mr. Cosell were perfectly fine. The one that I just cannot find myself voting for would be Mr. Fabish. He just, to me, I think that there were just way too many red flags that in his resume and also in the things that he did not tell us about his professional experience that would disqualify him in my book.
Ms. Blank? I can come back. You good?
No,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
I'm a measured person. I don't like to speak negatively publicly,
You don't have to speak negatively.
People are always growing.
Speak positively of the candidate you like.
I really liked Miss Anthony. I appreciate the people who had read our documentation, our comprehensive plan ahead of time, knew that information and was able to talk to it. I'm sorry. Okay. I thought Mr. Gabriel would be okay. I felt like he was well-spoken. He held the room well. He knew what he was talking about, recognized where his history is coming from, but seemed that he would be fair. But I hear the concerns. Right now, I would go with Miss Anthony.
Ms. McDowell?
I think in all our interviewing, in terms of legal candidates for all 3 positions that we've done, we've been very fortunate to have very good candidates, and so I'm grateful for that. On the other hand, it makes it difficult sometimes. But my first choice would be Miss Anthony. My second choice would be Mr. Murray. And the only reason I would go, I would sway away from, and even Mr. Murray, I think could run into some recusal issues because of his dealings in Portsmouth. You know, Mr. Gabriel, Ms. Rice, Mr. Murray, definitely, I think they would run into situations because of their affiliation with Portsmouth and their work in Portsmouth. So, I mean, my first choice is Miss Anthony.
Mr. Gleason? And I think that any of the 6 candidates could potentially have a conflict. There are some that are higher. But I think each and every one of them have some sort of a affiliation where at some point they could have a conflict.
You know, I would agree that, you know, we could have a situation where there's a conflict, but I think we don't have to rely on anybody except for somebody that we already have employed. So we're good there, you know? And I don't know of any situations where Judge Daddario in his 10 years now has had that situation, you know? So I think some of the candidates came before us. I think Ms. Anthony was very well prepared. She knows what type of cases we're dealing with on a regular basis, where others think short-term rentals is our biggest concern, and right now they're not. They should be, and well, I can't say they should be. They may be someday, but we've met about that in the past, but it's not our issue right now. It's other issues. So that being said, of all the candidates here, there are some that I would disqualify as not being people I would pick. I won't mention their names. But I think the strongest candidates were Ms. Anthony, and for whatever reason, I think Mr. Murray is the gentleman that closely resembles the municipal court judge that we have now, because I don't believe Judge Daddario, this was probably his first opportunity. And he has a lot of experience, and he stepped into the same kind of role. So those would be my 2 picks.
Okay. And it came at the end, but Mr. Murray rose to the top for me, mostly because of his experience from this side of the bench, being an arbitrator and other attributes that he has. He also was, to me, just outwardly the most prepared, having notes and having looked at the ordinances. And some of his reflections and answers to me are what we need in a municipal court judge who can be both fair and tough at the same time. I'm a little concerned that Miss Anthony would not be able to do both. I think she would be a little bit too lenient, and I think our court has been run slightly leniently in the past, and I think we need to tighten the screws down a little bit, specifically when it comes to administrating the fines and also court fees. It costs us money to run it, and not being able to, and waiving fees and pushing things down the road is not helping the residents who are being subject to complaints, or the residents who are bringing the complaints, or the town who's bringing the complaints. And I think Mr. Murray would be the best one to bring us forward in that sense.
Just for clarity, she did state that there is a balance between helping and those who don't follow the rules.
I just, for similar reasons, and I'll leave it at this, similar reasons why Mr. Payero wouldn't vote for Mr. Fabish, I would have similar concerns about Ms. Anthony.
Sorry, Dave, Reese, who was your first choice? I don't believe that.
No, I'm already actually reading. I
Thank you.
was, excuse me, I'm going to turn it on. I actually thought I'd go with Murray.
So, Ms.
Can I
Yeah.
just ask a question in
Absolutely.
regards to what you just talked about? So in the event that a municipal court judge, if the council felt that a municipal court judge was not doing what, or being too lenient, as you pointed out, is there some intervention that the council could do regarding
We
that?
could write that into the services contract where they serve at the pleasure of the council. I'm not, I would have to go back and reread the charter.
The charter,
data.
the charter says that the judge says at the pleasure of the council.
Yeah, so
Right,
we can
so-
remove anybody at any time we wanted to.
Yeah, not
Theoretically.
so much
But-
removal, but, speaking to, like you said, for several years, there's been leniency and, but that was probably partly the council's responsibility to deal with that, correct? And okay. As long as, we can rectify something no matter who the candidate is. I think charter allows it, council under the council jurisdiction. I just want to get clarity on that. Thank you.
So we have
All right.
two main candidates. So if somebody wants to make a motion to appoint somebody, we can have a vote.
I'll make the motion to appoint Alicia Anthony.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Again, I don't think the experience is there and I would like to see a more experienced person, so.
I feel that she did her due diligence
I-
with research.
She
I do as
did
well.
the second most of the due diligence, yes. She was well prepared.
In my opinion, she did
Yes.
the most.
All those in favor of appointing Miss Anthony?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes 5-2.
Who was the other opposition? I'm sorry.
Me,
The other one. Who was-
David.
Dave Reese.
He raised his hand, didn't say nay.
Okay.
Sorry, that's okay.
Clarify.
That's fine. I'm sorry. So if you can reach out to Miss Anthony in the morning, and work with our solicitor, do we have a services contract with her? I would appreciate that. Being that there is no further business tonight, our next meeting is on the 28th. Anything that needs to be put on the agenda would be due on the 20th by noon. Yes, that would be the Tuesday before, correct?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, 22nd, sorry, 22nd. I went in the wrong direction. You're right. I went in the wrong direction. I went to Sunday instead of Monday. Is there a second on the motion to adjourn?
Yes, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.